Okay, well, this time around, I've come on here to show that I've done a little bit more. And one thing I want to say now is that y'all probably know that from the way I've been kind of cutting up pieces, you might have seen the previous video or in the picture, the two bears I made last time from walnut and mahogany, the ones that are soaking in the oil. Well, I've already measured up out the lines from which I'm going to cut the two timbers that the blanks are to be traced from. So we are going to put on the mask here and put on the goggles here, and we are going to begin to cut these lines, and then I'll show you how I trace the bear pattern onto them. Now, what I forgot to mention first of all was that there was a piece of walnut that I purchased from the woodcraft store that was about this thick. It is the one that I carved or cut the walnut original bears out of that are currently soaking, and there was a leftover piece from that was about the same thickness that I traced to make a line onto a block of mahogany to make it about as thick to cut the bears out from mahogany from. And as of right now, I have also, when I made these lines on the cherry, used that same piece. That piece has been cut in half and has had a couple of blanks sawn out of it to carve some jackrabbits out of, which I'll hopefully have for the Easter holiday, maybe, or for the spring. But I just wanted to share that bit of information with you before I go ahead to cut this other piece out. the next thing I'm going to show is how we are going to trace the pattern on. First of all, I need to mention to you the fact that the pattern I'm going to show you was a pattern that came out of a book by Rick Butts. It was for like a bear that has much more dimension in it, like having one front leg down and the other front leg forward. And I kind of felt like that was a little too detail oriented for me, so I kind of do differently with the pattern. And what I'll show you first is that first what I do is I just trace along everything but the front legs, and I will show you all after that how the front legs come in next. It's a little bit, I'd say, of perhaps a little tricky thing to figure out here, but I'm going to demonstrate it, let you all kind of see how it goes, see how it's going to turn out, let you all see the little good in this. And this is one of these things where, as you can see, I have already done this much of the pattern already, drawn this much of it in. Well, there's one little part I left out, that is the part where I kind of need to draw in the chin, the part below the face and the neck, kind of go about that. But here I have finally done that much, gotten that much drawn in, as you can see. And what I do whenever I make this pattern is I take the back leg and try to line it up a little bit, make it come out in front of where the belly ends on this, show you all here, and then kind of draw the line there, draw the line here, and you'll notice that there's just a little bit of unmarked edge right there, that all we have to do is just draw the little line a little further and it'll come out just like this. Now on one of these pieces, it is not long enough to be able to trace two of the bears, so that is the reason why I take this other piece and do the same amount of the same type of tracing on this one. Try to make it go like it needs to go and show how it comes along. It'll be great in the long run once we kind of get the extra work put into it. It's gonna, and I will say that I've gotten that much done, and we're just going to draw the same line along here and finally connect the lines just like I did for that. Now, as far as this other bear goes, I will use a walnut or mahogany one on a different block to demonstrate how we are going to make that one turn out. I will say, first of all, that this block here of cherry, there was a little issue here with the fact that I forgot to take the stickers off of it, the price stickers, when I purchased it, so we're going to eventually take care of that. I'm kind of taking care of that right now, trying to get it a little more scratched off, and I don't know how this is going to turn out as it needs to be, but we're going to get this settled here, and I'd say that we're going to kind of take one of these bears, and you see the thickness of it. It turned out the mahogany one came out a little bit thicker than the walnut one did, probably because of wherever the lines were drawn. But we're going to take care of this little matter just like this, and I'm going to use the little walnut bear and the lines that are drawn and the thickness of it to draw out the thickness that is going to be on this wood. We are going to take care of this as the matter needs to be and try to get it all well done, well taken care of. Try to get it all in shape. Try to get it all in line. Take care of the little things and the best we can. I will kind of see, well, that's not the same thickness, but there's probably a few places where, since we've already carved out part of the legs on this bear, we're going to have to kind of fill in those places where the line got a little bit uneven, and matters are going to be well taken care of here. We're going to settle this all together, kind of get it in shape like it needs to be. See, but I tell you what, we're just probably going to use another piece of wood here to try to make the line so much straighter. Hopefully we're getting this across now. We're getting it in line, getting it taken care of, and so it is time that we just get these lines along. And of course this is going to be good enough to get two of these out. What I will mention to you is that when I made the pattern for this bear, I took the pattern for this bear and just kind of turned it around in different directions on the paper and kind of, you know, traced this part, then drew a line to go down and trace its head. Then I kind of traced its leg and traced a way for it to have a front leg. So I just kind of switched this pattern around on the paper to come up with the pattern for this one. But as you can see here, we have enough room to make two of these on the same blank. So after we cut this piece of wood out, we are going to trace this pattern onto this one, because after all, what was left of this one was not thick enough to cut out these other bears from. Now, from what you all are going to see here, I am going to need to show you all the way that this bear, this one, is going to be traced on. First of all, I will say that we're going to trace all the lines on the outside of it. And I'm lining it up right now so we can take care of that. And as I am about to show you all here, we're going to take care of this matter. You would probably note that it might be more typical that you would have, yeah, here's where it's traced on, that you would have a piece of regular paper Xeroxed and you would just trace it on with graphite paper. But on this one, since the legs have to be drawn out on both sides, I decided to cut along the lines from which to make the legs and to trace them on like this, as you're going to see. And that is going to be the place where, as you do here, you trace along the edge of where it is cut out to make those lines. We're going to trace this again, kind of do it quite the same way. When you're not having to demonstrate, you can even trace it all at once, to that matter. You can kind of go along these lines, and as you all see in the last video, I have already demonstrated how I cut out this particular bear. So on the demos we have already done for the previous ones, where you see that on one side the lines for the legs are already traced out, but what you do is you take the reverse side, then you take the reverse side of the pattern, you put it on like this, and from the other side you line it up to where it needs to be, and you trace along the legs from the other side. You trace along the cuts out of the legs from the other side. This is how it goes. We got this little matter taken care of here, and we got it on the other side as well. And with the other one I cut out from the last demo, I am going to do the same with that. Kind of trace it from the other side the very same way, and maybe one day I'll be successful enough in business that I'll be able to share so much more about these patterns, but there's going to be a lot more to say, a lot more to share as time goes on and as business goes a little further. Maybe as soon as business takes off, we'll be able to say a little more, share a little more, but that's kind of, I'd say, the way it's going right now. I do need to, before we end the video, demonstrate how we cut this bear out. I'm going to go ahead and start working on both. As you can see, I have already cut it out along the forehead and the top of the head, so we're going to see, as we show you here, we have done this one quite the same way. Right now I'm going to cut along the lines in front of its forelegs and below its chin. Now, as you're going to note, there were places here where I sort of had to separate the lines a little bit. I'm going to demonstrate a little bit more in this next one, but as you see here, first of all, there's a little line in front of the foot. I'm going to cut that first. Now, one thing I'm going to do next is cut the line below the nose. Then I'm going to cut another line here below the muzzle, which is going to require cutting past the place where it's cut out for the nose. Now, as we go a little bit further, there's going to be another line to cut along here to kind of make it a little straighter for that. And I will say what we're going to see next is a way to maybe carve up along this line and to cut along for the chin. And what we're going to show with both of these is there's a place where along these lines you have to make a cutout for the area that is between the feet. Now, there were some places along here where I kind of had to add in a little extra work. I had to cut along some of these lines, and apparently some carving is going to be done down here to smooth out the belly underneath. But it's kind of a little bit tricky if you haven't had enough experience with it yet, but I'll demonstrate a little bit more this time around. You'll see the first lines I cut is this line for the back of the front legs, and this line to come up behind the toes of the back foot. And this time I had to get along for the front of the back leg. Now I have come along to make this little mark. There's probably going to be a little extra work to do to get these lines cut, but we're going to do it here. As of this little work I've added, there's probably going to be a place where we're just going to kind of use the blade to dab this part to get it flattened. And to get this little extra part done back here, I just kind of cut a line along here and along the leg there. And like I said, we're probably going to rough that out with the knife when it kind of comes time to carve it more. But next thing I'm going to do is cut this line along here to make the back of its hind leg. Now, I do want to also say we're going to kind of also try to cut a little curve here and one here to kind of make its back and the back of its neck. Now, I will say that this last time around, the line was just so less steep, so I was able to cut completely around it to make that last cut. But here, there's a little thing I need to demonstrate, and we're going to kind of do along its butt and its tail here. Now, since we've gotten as far as the back of the tail, there's going to be a cut we're going to need to make to kind of get it all the way around. Then we'll cut off that last part to make its tail. Now, I do need to tell you all that as I go about these, even though it may be about time we can close the video here, I do want to tell you all that there's probably going to be a little bit more roughing to do with the saw blade to kind of get the blanks a little bit more down to where they need to be. But I will say that thankfully, I think we have gotten things taken care of here, and I am going to shut it down for the night.